everybody, and welcome to another Florida-friendly landscaping educational program. Today is a little bit different, not entirely. It definitely fits in with Florida-friendly landscaping. I invited my friend, Carmen Bruno, to join us today to talk about recycling, because recycling is one of the principles of Florida-friendly landscaping. So, I thought, Carmen and I work together a lot. We kind of are under the same general umbrella in county departments. He's with the solid waste. But so we're going to be discussing recycling inside and out. Here are both of our emails. This may come, of importance to you, especially later on. So if you have any questions for me, my email is LillyB, LILLYB, 2 L's in the middle, at hernandocounty.us. And Carmen's, if you have questions about recycling in Hernando County, is cbruno at hernandocounty.us. So he came later than I did. That's why he's a C. Bruno and I'm a LillyB. That's just how that happens in the county. But as I mentioned, recycling is one of the principles of Florida-friendly landscaping. It's principle number 7. So generally that talks a lot about recycling out in the landscape, and we're going to get to that part too. But I think just living a general lifestyle of recycling is important too. And there were several things I wanted, it's been bothering me lately, so I wanted Carmen to help address those. And we're going to start with the myths. Again, Carmen Bruno works for Hernando County Solid Waste. He's the recycling coordinator. And why these myths came to mind, Carmen, is, when I'm looking on Facebook, and I guess because of the kind of things that I look at, they try to direct advertising to you. So I see advertisements about eco-friendly products. And that's fine. That's super duper, except it's one particular company. You wonder how much they're really concerned about eco-friendly when they want to tear down an already eco-friendly institution, which is recycling. They're sending out myths out there, such as these, that you should buy their product, which is a good product. There's nothing wrong with the product, but they're saying because recycling isn't really happening. So I would like you, Carmen, to cover these 3 myths here and discuss it with us.
All right. Well, Lily, thank you for the opportunity to be here. I want to thank the folks that have joined us this morning live. I will do the best job I can to dispel some of these rumors and add whatever else I can that's actually going on in our state right now. So there's no markets for recycling anymore. I'm going to give that. I'm going to use one of the measurements that they're using in the press right now. I'm going to give that like 5 Pinocchio noses. That is absolutely positively a lie. There is a market for recycling. The market's changed a couple of years ago. As a nation, a lot of our recycling was going to China. China made some changes internally that they told us they were going to make. They implemented those changes, and the majority of our recycling no longer went to China, no longer goes to China. But the U.S. markets have worked to absorb that material. Some other foreign markets have worked to absorb that material. And right now, over the last, we'll say 6 to 8 months, prior to last month, we actually saw some higher prices for recycling material because petroleum was starting to work its way up in price. So there is a recycling market. It is a pretty strong market. The issue becomes the material that you're recycling. If you look on TV today, you'll see that the soda bottlers, Coca-Cola, Pepsi, and Dr. Pepper, they actually have a unified public outreach campaign to recycle soda bottles. Why are the 3 major bottlers concerned about it? Because they can't get enough virgin material to bottle their product to sell to the people that want a nice, cool, refreshing soda water. So that's number 1. Myth number two, it just goes in the landfill. I will tell you that better than 90% of everything that we collect in Hernando County for recycling, curbside and drop off, winds up getting recycled. That 10 to 7% of material that doesn't get recycled is because it's contamination. It's the wrong material. It's pizza boxes that still have pizza bones in them and they're soaked in grease. They're shopping bags that aren't part of our program. There are things like that. So just because something has the recycling symbol on it, you still have to find the right system for it. But better than 90% of what we collect goes to recycling, not in the landfill. And then, you know, the last one, again, I'm going to go back to the Pinocchio noses. I'm going to give that 4 Pinocchio noses. Not quite 5, I'll give it 4. Recycling does make a positive impact. There are jobs created in recycling. Right here in Hernando County, we have some scrap metal dealers. We have a paper recycler that works all over the state of Florida, has routes all over the Bay Area, Central Florida, North Central Florida. So they're picking material up all over the place. And, you know, they employ Hernando County and Pasco County residents directly. So recycling does make an impact. The big thing, and you'll hear me say this throughout our conversation for this opportunity, it's more about recycling right than just going, well, I'm doing something good. I'm going to recycle this bag of household batteries in my curbside recycling bin. Yes, you can recycle batteries, but they don't go in the curbside bin. So you've just put in contamination. You've potentially created a hazard with the batteries going in with all that other material. And then that load will probably still wind up being recycled, but now we've just added cost in getting that material out. So hopefully that does some myth busting.
Okay, well, thank you. Thank you very much. And I know that I've even read articles of people, you know, claiming recycling isn't a thing anymore. And, you know, it is still a thing. It's a very important thing. And I'm going to let you talk about, because I've heard you talk about this a lot, because, you know, we don't just recycle to give us feel-good feelings. There has to be economics involved to make any operation work. So I'll let you address recycling economics.
Absolutely. And I hate having to bring economics into it, but it's really, really critical that we do that, because this is an industry that we're representing. 2 weeks ago, I'm very happy to say that I was at the summer conference for Recycle Florida Today, RFT. It's the state recycling organization. I'm fortunate enough that last year and this year I'm the chairperson for it. And when we talk about economics, we had about 150 industry professionals, mostly from Florida, but also some folks nationally. We had a gentleman from Canada who does some business here in Florida. And we represent not only counties like Hernando County, because I was a member before I was on the board of directors and the chair, not only counties, but we have private industry, Republic Industries, Waste Management, or WM now, Waste Pro. We have consultants like SCS Engineering, Kessler Consulting, just to name 2. We have Goodwill of Minnesota and Goodwill of the Suncoast. So that organization encompasses all the parts of recycling here in Florida. Keep Alachua County Beautiful is part of our organization. So when we talk about the economics, number one, we have to see that it's not just the county that has recycling as part of their curbside service. It's not just the hauler that's picking it up. It's the processors, it's the material vendors or the equipment vendors that are selling the recycling equipment. It's the heavy equipment dealers that are selling the equipment that we use to move material. So really, it's a holistic approach to what we have here. We're working on, as an organization and an industry, trying to quantify that impact, not only to our residents, but to the state of Florida. And unfortunately, we don't see those numbers yet, but I know that a couple of the universities are working on it. So absolutely. When we talk about building more competitive manufacturing industries, again, I'll go back to our soda bottlers. Growing up as a kid, it was always Coke and Pepsi going after each other. They never were on the same page. They weren't in the same machine. They weren't anywhere. They were opposite ends of the world. Okay. But here we have Coke, Pepsi, and Dr. Pepper, that all three are together going, give us back your bottles. Okay. So as we look at that, they're trying to build an infrastructure to get those bottles back. So to manufacture new ones. So, that's how we're being competitive. Instead of, people just throwing the bottles away, they want to see them recycled. So they're building a network to do that. I had a really good opportunity while I was at the conference to talk to one of the reps from Coca-Cola. And we're going to try and get together and see what we can do to make more people aware of just how recyclable that PET plastic is. And that's the type of plastic it is. Mm-hmm. Adds to the US economy. Anytime we can do something here, whether it's make a raw material to ship overseas or make bottles or cardboard boxes, carpeting can be made out of plastic. Anytime we can do that here, we're going to add to the gross domestic product, the GDP of the United States. And again, at the Washington level, at the national level, people like the National Chamber of Commerce, the Department of Revenue for the federal government, they're looking at trying to quantify just what that means. But I'll tell you that we are adding to the U.S. economy, and it does happen. And then when we look at recycling overall, your last bullet point is really spot on. So when we look at recycling, again, from this holistic economic approach, it's got to be economical. The state of Florida at the Tallahassee level is encouraging folks to do more construction and demolition debris recycling. Not so much when you build a house or build a building, but on the demolition side, we're seeing, to call out two counties, we see Lee County, south of us, south of the Tampa Bay area, and Martin County on the west coast of Florida, just to name two. They're doing C&D recycling. Why do we want to do C&D recycling? It's heavy. There's good material in there. There's rock and metal. There are things that we can put back into the building industry. What does that do?
C&D means construction and demolition, correct?
Correct. Mm-hmm. So anytime you build something or demolish something, that's that category of material. And for solid waste, we actually have C&D landfills, but the state is really trying to grow this industry, and we see people doing it. So in those counties, in those parts of the state, it's economically feasible to get that C&D material recycled. Now, there's a significant investment in the process, but they've done that. So if you build a house in Lee County, or if you demolish a house in Lee County, they're going to get you to recycle that material. So it's economically feasible. Here in our county, we're not there yet. Okay. So when we talk about C&D, construction and demolition debris, it's going to wind up going to a landfill. All right. And that's that economic feasibility. The other big one that I'd like to mention is our shopping bags. You go to your big box store of choice, your grocery store of choice, you pick up a bag of chips and a 6-pack of Coca-Cola, they put it in that plastic bag for you so you can carry it out. Plastic shopping bags are not part of our curbside or our drop-off recycling program. Why? Because they require specialized equipment. You go, Carmen, I have 30, 40, 50 of them at my house. What do I do with them? You take them back to the grocery stores, they backhaul them to their distribution hubs, and they get them recycled. So it's taking the material and putting it in the right place.
Right. You could not collect enough of them in a year to make any profit from it, but the grocery store does.
Right. Because this is, and that's a great.
Or you can break even. You're not really striving for profits. Yeah.
Right. Right. We have to operate in the black. But the point you bring up is a sensational one, and I'm going to take 2 seconds to expand on it. When we recycle materials, we deal in truckloads of materials. Okay. I sent a truckload of newspaper and cardboard and a truckload of plastic, aluminum, and tin to our processor in Ocala. That was a 100-yard walking floor trailer. So when we move recyclables, we want to move whole truckloads. And when the processors process their material, they want to be able to ship whole truckloads of aluminum cans. Now, in Hernando County, we generate about 2 tractor trailer loads, maybe 3 tractor trailer loads a year of aluminum cans. To try and use that same benchmark for plastic bags, by weight, we would probably generate 1 tractor trailer load every other year of bags because they're so light, you bale them together, it takes so long. So now we have to have room in a warehouse to store the material. It's much better if you take the right material to the right place. And that's the other big thing about this. It's economics and the right thing in the right place.
Okay. Now let's see what, we're going to talk about what can we recycle. You know, we'll get to how to get your bins if you don't have them for curbside recycling, or where to take your recycling if you don't want to do curbside. But when you are looking at that bin, or you're putting it in, you know, one of your convenience centers, what are the things that should go in your quote unquote paper bin?
Okay. So thank you for putting this list up. I know we worked on taking it out of the 4-fold brochure that is available either by calling Solid Waste and Recycling or visiting our page on the county website, www.hernandocounty.us, and going to the Solid Waste and Recycling department. But really easy, and this is a basic list. When we talk about our curbside collection, we're talking paper and cardboard together. So you see a really good idea of what goes in that bin. One of the things that I touched on was pizza boxes. Number one, we don't want pizza boxes with pizza crusts in them. Okay, throw the pizza crusts away. If the boxes are just full of olive oil and cheese, go ahead and throw the box away.
Right.
All right. But the rest of that material is pretty straightforward. Okay. It's got to fit in the bin. It can be up to 36 inches tall. So this way you can be above the bin, but it's got to fit in the bin itself. The drivers on the recycling trucks are picking up about 800 stops a day. So we want to be able to grab the bin, dump it either on the side or the back of the truck and move on. The other thing on there is shredded paper. If you have a paper shredder at home, absolutely. We have one at the office and I have one at home. Put it in preferably a paper bag. You can write shred right on the paper bag. Winn-Dixie and Publix will still use paper bags for your groceries. You just have to ask them.
Mm-hmm.
You can also go to the big box stores and buy the big leaf bags for yard waste, and you just write shred on it. You can use that. All else fails, if you have either clear or semi-clear plastic bags, you can put your shred in that. That's the only thing we'd like to see in a bag. Everything else we'd like to see right in your container. Okay, so that list is pretty straightforward. Comes right off of our website and our brochure. The big thing is not food contaminated, not soiled. If you used a piece of cardboard underneath the vehicle to catch oil, motor oil spills, just go ahead and throw that away.
Okay. And I was I violated the fitting inside the cardboard bin a couple of years ago, and they left me a note. And you know, just because they're trying to make you aware of what you're allowed to do or not do, but the note kind of incensed me, and Carmen got a phone call. But I was the one who violated the rules. It was a big box, and I just kind of stuck it in there, and it did stick way out of the bin. So I guess cutting those boxes up so that they fit inside is the way to go.
And if you do have something big that doesn't fit in your recycling bin, we currently have 4 drop-off locations. I unfortunately think I'm going to have to move one because of construction at the courthouse, but I'm going to encourage folks to use any one of our 3 solid waste locations over by the entrance to Spring Hill off of 19 going out to Hernando Beach. We have our location at 2525 Ossawa Boulevard. You can visit the main landfill at 14450 Landfill Road in Brooksville. That one's pretty easy. Just look for Landfill Road. They made it so we could remember where we go to work. And then the last location is out in Ridge Manor. It's off of Highway 50, Cortez Boulevard. It's 33070 Cortez Boulevard. We call it the East Convenience Center or the East Drop-Off Center, transfer station. The folks out there have room for recycling. They'll answer questions. We've got a great staff working in all 3 of our locations. If you visit the main landfill, that's where my office is. But absolutely, if you miss your pickup day or have something too big, bring it to us.
Okay, and here's the plastics and tin. We call it tin, but it's really steel cans now. And aluminum. You put your aluminum and your steel cans right in with the plastics. You do kind of mix those together, correct?
Yes.
And this picture is actually of your facility.
Yes. That's when we had a processor on site. And the material you're looking at colored HDPE plastic, high density polyethylene. And to the left of that, you're looking at PET plastic.
Can you tell us what these, maybe somebody doesn't know when you say you can recycle, you say rigid plastic, but what do these, when you find that little recycling symbol on a plastic container, what does the number in it mean? And what do those letters under it mean?
Okay, so with plastics, there are basically 7 categories of plastic. So the number inside the chasing arrows talks about a formula, a resin that they use. The plastic industry did that to us when they first came, when plastics really started taking off. And it's really more for them than it is us. Because when you look at, and I've got one here, let's see, I've got one here with junk in it. I'm gonna get one of these plastic shopping bags. So when you look at the bottom of a container, you'll see typically, and they've done away with it on this one, which is nice. All you see now on the Lowe's bag, which is kind of hard to do, is just the chasing arrows all by itself. So what's important to remember about that symbol is it tells the manufacturer what resin they use. Early in the industry, in the recycling industry, we kind of relied on that. But the bigger thing for us now is the style of container. So the bag that I have here on my desk is either a number 1 or a number 2, I believe. Some of them are made out of a polypropylene. But the fact that this is a number 1 or 2 plastic isn't as important to us as the fact that it's what we call plastic film. And with our processors, this gets wrapped around shafts or conveyors and things like that and causes some issue because it's flimsy. So when I talk to folks about our curbside recycling program, I'm more concerned about what you see here in your bullet point number 3 is rigid plastic containers, okay? And that's what those 2 bales are. Those are water bottles, soda bottles on the one to the left, and then the one to the right, that's, maybe shampoo or conditioner, maybe a kitty litter container, detergent, like your laundry detergent, your automatic dish soap for your washing machine. So we're really more concerned about what it is rather than what it's made out of. Aluminum cans are straightforward. Aluminum cans are aluminum cans. And over the last 30 years, the aluminum beverage manufacturers have driven those cans to be much thinner. It takes more to make a pound than it used to.
Yeah, yeah, I could crush one now, yes.
Yeah. Your tins or steel cans are actually bimetal cans. They're actually tin and steel. And then your rigid plastic container. So when we look at the modern processing facility, think about baking a cake. If I bake a cake, if I want to make an angel food cake, I really need to follow the recipe to have a nice, light, airy cake. So it calls for cake flour. Well, cake flour looks like bread flour. That doesn't make any difference. I'll use bread flour. Well, if I use bread flour in an angel food cake, I'm not going to get an angel food cake. I'm going to get
a pound cake, pretty much.
Yeah, exactly. So when we look at recycling, I know, people might think it's splitting hairs, but we really want the right material in the program. Things like meat trays. So, it's summertime, people are grilling out hot dogs, maybe some sausage, Italian sausage or brats on the grill. You go to your favorite grocery store, you buy a container of it, and there's that styrofoam tray underneath it. Well, it typically has a recycling symbol on it. You're going, well, it's plastic. I'll just put it in. Take it back to your grocery store. It goes in the same bin as your egg cartons go in at the grocery store. Because again, they're set up for it. So that's a great list. We've tried to simplify it as much as possible. The numbers and symbols on the bottom are nice, but just look at it and go, is this a rigid container? Yup. Okay, I'm going to put it in there.
Okay.
Rinse it out, throw it in your bin.
Because I was under the assumption for quite some time that the numbers represented how many times that has been recycled before. And that is incorrect, apparently.
Yeah, it all has to do with, so in the reference that you have, that's a number 1 or a PET. And I always stumble on PET. Number 2 is a HDPE, and that's a high density polyethylene plastic. So that's a polyethylene something ethylene plastic.
Yes.
Okay, it just has to do with the formula that they use.
So it's not really for us to be concerned with. That's for the industry. We just know if it's rigid, it goes in our bin.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. You kind of mix, you talked about the pizza boxes that are gross and greasy and everything. What happens if you do mix trash and recycling? Do you have a crew who's going to pick that recycling out of the trash, or what's going to happen with that?
So all the recycling that's collected here in Hernando County, whether it's in the drop-off program or the curbside program, is going to make its first stop here at our landfill. We have a building that's dedicated to preparing that material for transport. We will go through and do a very basic look through the material, and we'll glean out whatever bags of trash we can find. And unfortunately, we see it a lot more with our drop-off program than our curbside program, because the drivers on the curbside trucks are actually doing part of that check for us.
Oh, yes, I know.
Yes.
I got their note. Yes.
Your personal experience,
Yeah.
however, looking for the right word here, the fact that it spurred a conversation between you and I, it proves that the system worked the right way. So the drivers do a first sort, a first check of the material. They will try to re-educate their customers, tag it, leave it down. They're not picking on anybody. They're just trying to get us material that we can take all the way through the system. We get it here. I had somebody that put a bunch of trash in one of our drop-off bins. So we kind of pulled that out of the process, put it in a dumpster here at the landfill, sent the rest of the material to the processor in Ocala. It adds labor to the value of the material every time we touch it. Okay, so with our operation, it's not as critical as it is in the private sector. When we look at the cost to get material recycled, there's a processing fee. And the cleaner your material is, usually the better processing fee you can get. Hernando County has a really good processing fee because we have really clean material. But that processing fee can be anywhere between $45 and I've seen it as high as $180 in some quotes. Okay. So that's a pretty wide range. What causes that? We can talk to the folks in Orange County, where Orlando is. Orange County Solid Waste and Recycling, good group of people. 3 years ago, they had a curbside contamination rate at 35%. They've gotten it down to 25%, and they're still working to drive it down. What that means is about a quarter of everything they collect is the wrong material. So their processor has to make sure they get that out, because when the processor's all done with what's going on, they want to be able to market their material and get a good price for it. The mills that our material goes to, they know who produces a good bale of material. They check for things like contamination, moisture. Those are the two big ones. So if we send them a bale of plastic, or the processor sends them a bale of plastic, they bust that bale open and they found in the middle of it, there's all sorts of garbage. They're going to send a whole tractor trailer back. So really, I can't strive enough, and you've done a great job in your presentation. The material that we're looking to recycle is the material that's on our list. If you have a question about it, you have a concern about it, Lily's got my contact information at the end of the slide presentation, or I'll give my phone number at the end of this, and folks can give me a call. Now we go and Lily, I know you and I chuckled about this when we first started talking about it, but this is a real thing.
Yes, and recycling. Oh yes, and I've seen it, and I have probably committed it years ago too.
Well, you know, it's not.
I know better now.
It's not a heinous crime. Wish cycling is, you know, we want to do the best job we can, and you know, maybe I moved here from somewhere else, or you know, maybe I watched a documentary on TV and I saw where there's a place somewhere in the U.S. that's recycling hair. So I clean my brush out and I have this bag full of hair, and I'm going to put it in my recycling bin because I know there's someone in the United States that recycles that. That is wish cycling.
Yes.
Okay. Unfortunately, we do not do that here. The other example I give all the time is chicken feathers. Yep, there's a market for chicken feathers. There's a market for duck feathers and goose feathers. But here in Hernando County, it's not part of our curbside or drop-off program. Okay, so I want to get it recycled. I don't want to send it to the landfill. I feel bad about sending it to the landfill. I'm gonna put it in a recycling bin.
And it's not gonna, you could end up maybe contaminating again. So, you know, it's not what you want to have. It's not going to force them to recycle it because you think that they should. That all goes back to those economics and all of that. And back here to this one, this answers the direct question you may get. What happened to the bins at Walmart? This answered, and you talked about that extra labor, and you know, it was abused. Let's just put it that way.
Yes, we had right before those bins were pulled, and I probably should have pulled them at least a year before we did. But there was a lot of conversation here at Solid Waste and Recycling, and I was an advocate for, you know, we'll put new signage up and but it just got to the point where those bins were better than 50% contaminated. And we'd have people that would leave whole bedroom sets, have a house full of furniture just on the ground next to the bins. There were a number of times that we had to send roll-off trucks down there just to pick up the debris that was left behind. Or, you know, I'd go down with my pickup truck and a box truck that we have here, and we were there 3 to 4 days a week. We had a contractor that was there 3 to 4 days a week. The only day that we typically weren't there was on Sunday, but Monday through Saturday, there was somebody there, or there were two groups of people there. So if you have something that isn't in our system and you want to recycle, it's not part of our program, Earth 911 is a great website. Absolutely, folks can call me or email me and I'll help them find a home for it. When it comes to big stuff like furniture, electronics that still work, check with our local thrift stores, Jericho Road, Habitat for Humanity, the Sheriff's Youth Ranch, Salvation Army, Goodwill. Check with them and see if they take it. Just understand that, unfortunately, those organizations don't take everything we want them to, because they either have to be able to repair it or have a market for it. They don't want to take something. I'll use a couch as an example. You know, you finally decide it's time to get a new couch, and you think your old one's the greatest thing in the world because you've used it for 20 years. Well, you take it somewhere and nobody wants it because there's an impression where you laid and the dog has scratched it up and the cat has pooped on it, the baby threw up on it, and it's really not serviceable anymore. So wish cycling is a real thing. Absolutely. If you have something you're not sure what to do with it, feel free to reach out.
And this you already addressed. Your styrofoam, your egg cartons, under your meat, I would wash that before you take it anywhere, definitely. And those plastic bags that you get from the grocery store. Just about every grocery store has these green bins in front now. That's the place to take them because, you know, all of the Publixes in the Southeast, all the Winn-Dixies, all of the, you know, whatever store you go to, Kroger now is coming around. They can collect enough, you know, to get those truckloads to make it an economical venture. You knew this was coming, Carmen, and this is probably one of your #1 questions, isn't it?
Lily, I have a phone call that I have to make. It's been great talking with y'all.
Why don't we recycle glass, Carmen?
Don't we recycle glass? So we've already touched on economics. So, and I hate to do this as a recycling coordinator, but I also have to remember that our solid waste department is an enterprise fund. So that means like utilities where you're at, we have to fund ourselves completely. And when we look at the economics of recycling glass, it's about, and this number is 2.5, almost 3 years old now. It was about $70 a ton. With fuel prices where it's at now, I'm going to say that number is probably closer to $100 a ton. And a lot of that has to do with shipping. So the glass that we collect will start at the back end and work to the drop off. So the glass that we were collecting was going all the way to Strategic Materials in Sarasota, Florida. Okay, by tractor trailer, that's a long ride. Okay, Strategic Material wants container glass. They want wine bottles, soda bottles, beer bottles, pickle jars, mayonnaise jars, if you can still find mayonnaise in glass.
Soda in glass?
They want food grade glass. Okay, now they have a market for it. The container people want to use it. The fiberglass insulation people want to use it. The problem is getting it to Sarasota. That's expensive. Here at the landfill, the
driver, as well as the cost of the truck too.
The driver, the cost of the truck, and the cost of diesel, all three of those things have gone up. I've got a trucking contract right now to move material to Ocala, and it has gone up just unbelievably in the last 2 years. So that's definitely part of it. So
you come back from that trip already in the hole, basically.
Exactly. So when we look at what we collected at the drop-offs, again, we were looking for food grade or container glass. That's what we had on our decals. That's what we had on our boxes. And we would get things like porcelain plates, china plates. We would get fish tanks. We would get TVs.
Light fixtures, yes.
Light fixtures. There's all sorts of contamination with TVs. I will tell you that a picture tube out of an old TV, although there aren't a lot of them left, a picture tube in a glass recycling bin that breaks will 100% contaminate that whole bin with lead, and the recycler won't take it. So once we look at that, once we look at the fact that, number one, the market's so far away, and number two, people unfortunately just don't want to follow directions, the economics of glass recycling right now don't make sense. Okay, glass gets turned back into sand.
Yes.
At least around me right now, we have a good bit of sand. And then the other thing, environmentally, when we look at glass, glass is inert. So it means it doesn't change state. It doesn't turn into anything else. Glass really doesn't decompose. It just breaks back into silica. So when we look at operating a landfill, there are a couple of things that we always weigh out. Number one, is it an odor risk? Number two, will it produce litter? And number three, is it a threat to groundwater should something happen here at the landfill? And I'm going to tell you that when we talk about glass, none of that is an issue. Okay, it's silica, it's sand. We put it in the landfill, we run over it with an 80,000-pound machine. We pretty much turn it back into sand.
Yeah.
Okay, and it's going to sit in the landfill and just keep breaking as we pile more on it. So we look at the economics, we look at the environmental issues, and it's just not a good fit when there are so many other materials we can try to recycle. Aluminum cans, when we look at mining bauxite, the process behind that, bimetal cans, tin cans, steel cans, they're easily recycled, easily pulled out of the recycling stream at the processor. And then when we look at plastics, plastics are a petroleum derivative. So as we talk about energy independence, as we talk about shifting from a petroleum-based economy to alternative fuels, wind power, solar power, things like that, going to batteries in cars. When we look at doing that, the more of this material we can recycle, the plastic, the less demand there will be for those petroleum-based products. So, you know, just kind of take a look around in the grocery store for the glass, going back to that. Hellmann's mayonnaise, and I don't ever really like to single out any one manufacturer, but for years growing up, Hellmann's was always in a glass jar, always in a glass jar, and now they're in a plastic jar.
Right. So the market isn't even there.
I sent them a sternly worded letter, and it didn't change anything. So the manufacturers are shifting the plastic. So let's really work on getting that plastic into our recycling system so that we can get it turned back into new products, whether it's polyester in a t-shirt or polyester in carpeting.
And also the last thing about glass is for the collectors thereof, it is a safety issue.
Yes.
Going across conveyor belts or recycling guys at the curbside picking it up. It's not as easy as, you know, those who use the automated things and just throwing the trash in. They pick up the recycling bins by hand, and you know, you've got cut glass, you have safety issues.
Yes.
You mentioned these, so we're just going to quickly go kind of past it. But if you would like a PDF copy of this video, you can email me, and my email will be at the end again, so you can have this information. This is where you can take your recyclables as well as your trash, you know, at the main landfill, which is, he says Brooksville, it's pretty far north of Brooksville, and the two convenience centers as well. Now this curbside recycling, if you have Republic Services picking up your trash, you're already paying for curbside recycling, correct?
Yes.
So all you need to do is call them. Here's their number, 352-540-6457. Tell them I want to start recycling, and they should bring you 2 bins that look just like this. One of them you're going to put in your paper. One of them you're going to put in your plastic and your steel composites and your aluminum. Doesn't matter which, correct?
Correct.
For me, the green is the paper. and the blue is the plastics.
Yep.
Just my choice. But
we're going to pick every one of them up by hand, and they're going to get looked at and then put into the truck. And they're going to stay separate all the way to the processor. Okay, we continue to segregate the material all the way through. We're a dual stream recycling program. The other thing I'd like to add, if folks don't want to call Republic Services, most of the people that are either with us now or going to watch this program are comfortable on a computer. The county website, www.hernandocounty.us. On the home page, there's a button that says, I want to, ... You can actually click on that and request your recycling bins right there. So we've tried to make that a little bit easier. The other thing that we've also done at that same location, I'm going to take 2 seconds to talk about missed pickups, whether it's yard waste, trash, or recycling. You can actually report a missed pickup at the same place, same button, I want to, ... It says report missed either pickup or trash pickup, but it's actually all free. That is going to go to Republic Services right here in Hudson, and it's going to come to us at the landfill. So that is a much better way to report a miss than calling 1-800-REPUBLIC, because you wind up going to a call center, and then it's got to get from the call center here to Hudson. This cuts out the middle person and lets you report your trash miss on your own.
Okay, yes. And what I do, because people ask, these open bins, what do we do if it's raining? What I do is, because the blue one is my plastic bin, I usually just put it on top, and just in case it's going to rain, of the one with the paper in it. That's how I kind of solve that, if we have a huge downpour, the paper's going to get wet, but that's how I kind of solve that. And as you can see, it's called curbside recycling, but you don't even need a curb, and they will come, and you don't even need a paved road. And they will come and get it for you. Now I want to kind of concentrate on, now that we have discussed all of the ins and outs of recycling, and that recycling is a viable industry and it is occurring, and how we can participate in it. It is true that those other 2 R's in that, the chasing arrows, as you say, are extremely important, and I don't think we're concentrating on them enough. We've gotten too dependent on the recycling that we're ignoring the reducing and the reusing. So, it's the combination. So one of the ways, I know Carmen gives out, and so do we, so does my program, we give out reusable grocery bags. I am just as guilty of anyone as I drive them all over town and forget to bring them into the grocery store. So we needed to put them where we will remember to use them, so that you cut out that waste stream to begin with. One of the ways, I think I saw you just drinking from a straw. Is that a reusable straw? Yes.
No, it's yep. There's your reusable straw and my reusable plastic.
Yeah, it goes right into my dishwasher. I, have a bunch of those because I'm addicted to straws. So I bought myself some reusable ones. They even make little baggies you can get to put your vegetables in instead of using the plastic bags, which are very hard to get open, especially now, that we've learned about COVID. You don't want to stand there putting spit on those things in the grocery store. So if you just have, the little cloth reusable ones, there are just so many different ways that we can, what we need to do is think like our grandparents. That is the thing. And I say grandparents because that is for most people. I had an older mother. My mother was born in 1922. She had me when she was 45. So she was a Depression era child. So she knew all about reusing and reducing. And I tend to remind myself to try to follow her ways.
And that's a great point about this whole thing, Lily. We can affect more change as a consumer then we really can, as the user of a recycling program or something like that, because it's good feedback, and it's important for folks to let us know about our recycling program. Absolutely take the opportunity to talk to folks about that. But we can really affect more change in the choices we make and the products that we buy. Looking for products that have less packaging, looking for opportunities to buy in bulk. Now, I don't mean like going to Sam's Club and getting a whole case of toilet paper. When I talk about buying in bulk, there's a couple of grocery stores, and we're starting to see them here in our region.
Whole Foods and Trader Joe's,
Mother Earth, and there's another one. But you can actually buy products like honey and olive oil, nuts, grains, and things like that, where you can bring your own container back in and reuse it. So, you know, in the case of my house, we're trying to get away from processed sugars. So I use honey in my oatmeal. That would be a great choice to find one of those stores and do that. So really, we have far more say in this process than we believe we do. It's the power of the consumer.
And here's just some ideas of recycling those glass jars, if you really are reusing those glass jars, I should say. This is just two of the ideas. You know, this I thought was really cool, you know, and I put this one on there because I know when people are aggravated asking you, why don't we recycle glass? I know what the real issue is. They have a lot of glass and it probably looks like this. That's why, you know, there might be a lot of bottles of a certain beverage that passes through their home and they want to know what to do with it. I chose put on a link at the end of this, which talks about upcycling. You know, that's the new trendy word for reuse, upcycling, that the younger folks use. You can even go on Pinterest. You'll never run out of ideas of how you can reuse those glass jars. I've told Carmen I give mine at least a second life. It does end up in the landfill, but at least it involves a second life in that I put grease in my spaghetti pasta sauce jars or any kind of glass jars that I have. Because I have a septic tank, and even if you are on our municipal system, you don't want to put grease down the drain. It causes problems way down the road. Or if you're like me and have a well and a septic system, causes personal, you know, problems. So I use, you know, a colander, a strainer over a bowl. Then I put the bowl of grease in one of these jars until it fills up and I throw it away. And apparently there is a Facebook page just for that, where people show off their jars of grease. I'm not quite into that, but you know, it is another thing to think about doing. What I have here is, and we've all seen it and have experienced it in life. That's why I put like grandma does, reuse plastic containers. You know, the jokes that I opened grandma's refrigerator and everything is in margarine containers and you just have no idea what it is till you look for it. We've gotten away from that. But you know what? She was reusing and it was smart. And let me see how much time we. Yeah, we're getting a little close on time, but this is where Carmen and I's programs really converge together, and that's with composting. So I'll let you talk about a little bit about composting in Hernando County, and you can explain these pictures on here too.
So the wonderful compost models that we have on the left and the wonderful picture of compost that we have on the right, it's actually a project that Lilly and I both did with Chocochatty Elementary School. And they had a couple of compost bins. We donated some more compost bins, and they were actually able to make compost. And if you're not familiar with Chocochatty Elementary School, they have micro societies where they have representatives of all the different things that we see in our adult lives. So they have farmers, and they have bankers, and they have insurance salespeople, and they have newspaper people. So their livestock micro society is taking care of the compost, and they actually sold it to the folks in their micro society that were growing crops. But that's a sample of it. And then the picture in the middle is a compost bin, very similar to one of the models that we give away in our compost education program. Right now, we don't have any compost bins. I'm waiting for a shipment from Canada, hopefully soon. Have to remind them that they owe me a tractor trailer. But we do compost classes now.
Yes, that is kind of caught in the, what is it, supply chain issues. Your compost bins are stuck in supply chain issue purgatory right now. Yeah.
Yep, they're in limbo. The order has been placed. They've acknowledged the order. They have not shipped yet. So what we see with compost, people ask me all the time, well, why does the landfill care about composting? Well, it's a form of recycling we can do at home. And, you know, I'm going to say easily 20% of what we throw away, probably up to 50% of what we throw away is food waste. USDA or US EPA acknowledges that at least 50% of the food we buy, the majority of the time, doesn't get eaten. It either goes bad before it gets cooked, or it gets cooked and it doesn't get eaten. So what do you do with that? Well, you send it to the landfill. Okay, we can handle it. But some of that material can very easily stay home and make a supplement for your soil. And this is where Lilly and I, or our programs, cross. Because as we talk about water conservation, what happens in Florida in the afternoon when we get a rainstorm and you have a yard that's primarily sand? Where's the water go?
Right through the sand.
Yes. Right through the sand, because there's nothing to hold that moisture back so that the plants can take a nice slow drink throughout the day. So by composting, using compost, whether you make your own or you buy it, and there are some options out there for buying compost, you're going to put nutrients back into your soil. You're going to add pyrosity, which is the space that the roots need to grow. You're going to give some structure to your soil. And you're also going to add that water holding content, that moisture holding capacity. So compost is a great thing. Helps me because you send a little less material to the landfill every year. And it helps Lilly in our water conservation efforts because, you know, our area is booming. I'd love to see every new house that gets built have, you know, up to 10 yards of compost worked right back into their soil. And we're working on a program where maybe we can start to acknowledge that.
I'm really excited about that. That is, you know, it's in the very, very, very beginning stages, but it was Carmen's idea. I think it's a fantastic idea. And you're working on either the builders or the sod companies, correct? That, you know, each home that gets built, that the contractor has a financial incentive to add some compost before they lay the sod.
Right.
Which really is the way it should be, you know, from now on. But that's in very, very beginning stages. You're working on it.
And we're also working towards an industrial composting facility here at our landfill to use our ground vegetative wood waste and potentially wastewater sludge to make a AA safe compost. Very, very important for folks to understand. We've got a permit from the Florida Department of Environmental Protection, and they say before we give away any material, it will be tested and we have to certify our process. So we're just not going to willy-nilly put this stuff together and go, here you go. Okay, we'll have a documented process and test results to offer the material to.
And when will that be happening, Carmen?
I'll get back to you on that.
That's a joke between us because the answer has always been 2 years. And we've worked together now, what, 7 years?
Yes. Yes, we've been working on this project for about 6 years. I will tell you that we are the furthest along we've ever been. We have a permit. We have some money in the bank. We have a consultant that's working on planning the project and getting us our design documents to build it. It is a little more involved than just a backyard compost bin. We're right now looking at doing about 20,000 tons a year of material. So, and that number is ratcheting up every year just because of our growth. So it's an 11-acre facility. It's got an active composting area, a curing area, a finished product area. It's even got a little corner of it for future growth where we might actually talk about food waste recycling, pre-consumer food waste recycling. So we've got great plans for the area, but we have to build it and I have to prove the first process before I can go anywhere. So hopefully we'll have truckloads of material available here at a very reasonable price.
And even bags, correct? If you don't want it on the float, that would be fantastic. Yes, I can't wait for that to happen.
Neither can
and we'll go quickly because you can take a compost class from us as soon as the compost bins show up. So, here are just a few of the things, and we talk about these in the classes. But if you're wondering, what can I compost? Kitchen scraps, basically anything other than any non-animal product you can compost. One animal product you can compost, and what is that, Carmen?
Chicken manure and rabbit manure.
Yeah, other than that, out of your kitchen,
Eggshells.
Eggshells, okay. Because eggshells they're never really going to break down. So you're going to want to make them really small, like in, your paper towel or something like that. Break them up, but they provide calcium and some porosity and, to your compost bin. But composting manure is a whole other subject that we do cover in the compost bin workshops. Usually, Carmen and I hold a combo workshops, rain barrel, compost bin. He ran out of compost bins. Now they're stuck in supply chain limbo. So I'm still holding the rain barrel workshops, and I have the waiting list. If you want, as soon as his bins gets here, we'll start up those classes again, catch those people up. So email me if you're like, I really want to, participate in a compost class. The compost bins are free to Hernando County residents, 1 per household. That's how that works. Now, and I mentioned the rain barrel workshops, which I continue to have twice a month. Eventually, probably in the fall, we'll get caught up to do these together again. But the rain barrels are $65 for the rain barrel. If you're a customer of Hernando County Utilities, you'll get a one-time $30 credit on your water bill. Generally, I hold 1 in-person and 1 virtual workshop every month. How do they get their rain barrels if it's a virtual workshop, Carmen?
Well, that's an easy question, Lily. We'll meet them either at the Master Gardeners location in Brooksville or the HCUD building right outside of Brooksville off of 50 by the expressway. And we'll be more than happy to help them load up, and they can get their bins a couple of days after they do the class. Yep,
or the day after, however it works. The first step to attending a rain barrel workshop is emailing me. It's a recurring theme here. Email me, LillyB at hernandocounty.us. And I'll just go quickly at the other ways in the land and the landscape, how we can apply that recycling in the landscape. Recycling raindrops, through those rain barrels, that is one major way, but there's other ways. There's downspouts. Don't send them down the street, because they're going to pick up pollution, which will end up in our waterways. So send them somewhere like your lawn. See, they put this nice platform here so it does not cause ruts, into a flower bed somewhere that's going to use that water. Build a rain garden. We are going to have classes on that coming up soon. More pervious surfaces that allow water to go through in your yard, the better. Here's some inside things too about saving water that people tend not to think about. You take a shower, you're not thinking about all that water that you haven't used. So if you just stick a bucket in there with you, it's going to collect some of that water that might have gone down the drain. You can use that on your plants. And the same thing from if you threw some vegetables in a pot with some water, maybe even some pasta, let that cool down. Don't just send it down the colander, save it, let it cool down. Then the one with vegetables actually has a little bit of nutrients in it for your plants too.
Really, really important point to let that water cool though.
Yes.
You might have some personal experience there.
Oh my. And, Carmen has, and at the landfill, they have yard waste pickup days. I try to ignore those because I'm not into sending your yard waste to the landfill. I'm glad they offer that, but there's just so many other ways to use it. You can use it in your compost, or you can use it, around your yard. A lot of things you can use as mulch, as natural mulch, just like it would be in the forest, in the woods, leaves, pine needles, all of that. And if you have space and you're in a community that allows it, just brush piles around does amazing things for wildlife. And I have classes on attracting wildlife, and they always include brush piles. Carmen and I talk about this all the time. We kind of have some combined efforts on this too, something called grass cycling. All that it means is don't bag up those grass clippings and put them out front to send them to the landfill. There's so many other useful purposes. You can bag them up if you want to and put them in your compost bins. That's a whole lot of the N portion, the nitrogen portion of your compost bin. You can even use it for mulch, but be careful, because what does grass, what are they make? Grass huts and everything, the thatch huts. So just maybe a thin layer, otherwise it will thatch up and not let the moisture, get to your plants. Or just let it go back in the grass like we're doing here. Each of those blades of grass contain 90% water, but enough nitrogen that the University of Florida says if you do this, you can skip one fertilization a year of your lawn just from letting those grass clippings go back to the lawn. This does not cause thatch in your lawn. Overwatering and shallow roots causes thatch in your lawn. Some other things to think about when we're talking about reducing. I put plant share. We all have plant friends that we share plants with, and I put with caution, because know what kind of plants you're sharing. There are invasive, problematic plants out there, so make sure that's not what you're sharing back and forth. Classes on that coming up too. But learn how to propagate the plants that you have. That saves you money. That lessens your carbon footprint of having to go purchase, go to a store, you drive there, the truck drove there, all that. Do that by also staying as local as you can. There are local nurseries out there. And some of the local nurseries, like the Hernando County Master Gardener Nursery, their pots are in the same purgatory that your compost bins are in. They can't order these black pots. Or they can order them, they can't get them in. So, I know that they're always looking for people to return pots to them. Another way to keep that recycling, that reusing system going. And here's that word again, upcycle. Upcycle planters, and this is just a few of the ideas. Again, go on Pinterest and let your imagination go wild. If it can hold soil and water, it can be a planter. If you received your nice, beautiful blue bins from Republic a few years ago, and you already had trash cans. You're like, what do I do with it? Oh, look what these people did. You know, they made a planter out of it. Anything you see, we have toys, we have magazine racks, colanders, anything, you know, just let your imagination go wild and have fun. Some of these classes I have shabby chic landscapes, and I tell them, you know, for like a month, try not to purchase any kind of new ornamental type material for your yard, and see what you can reuse around what you already have. You know, get your creative juices flowing. So here are some of the resources that will help you continue this further. Again, here's ways to upcycle glass jars and bottles. Just one thing I found, like I said, go on Pinterest and get other people's ideas. There is a publication on rain gardens, and I'm going to have a class coming up on rain gardens. Compost tips for the home gardener. And also here is Carmen's, you know, where you find information about the solid waste program is www.hernandocounty.us. And I know there's a lot after this, but you can just look for departments in solid waste and recycling. I have lots of classes on YouTube now. So you can always go to Hernando County Government YouTube and find the classes I've done over the past couple of years. We have a brand new YouTube star right next to me here. He's got, what, 4 or 5 programs on there, don't you, Carmen?
I think I've got 4 now. We're working on a 5th.
Okay. And he will explain a lot of things about what is about kick your can? What is it that you're talking about?
I will encourage folks to go to the county YouTube site and look for our solid waste videos. There's one for trash collection. There's one for recycling, yard waste, and bulk items. We're talking about doing one for household hazardous waste. And I'm not going to spoil the tagline because I want them to go find out what it is, but it's really cute.
All right. And I also, you can find my classes and other information at my Facebook page. And I've just started Instagram and Twitter. I am really, you know, really getting out there. So
wow.
Here are upcoming classes. Now I was supposed to have a class in person on pollinators at Spring Hill Library today. That is not able to happen. I'm sorry. That wasn't able to work out for today. I will try and catch up with that class, and you can go to Hernando County Government YouTube and see the virtual class I did on pollinators, but I'll try to make up an in-person one as soon as I can. Next week is going to be really exciting. Carmen Rita's coming with me next week to my Wednesday morning virtual class. Rita Grand is going to be talking about the native plant starter kit, easy to find, easy to grow native plants. And July 27th is when that rain garden class is coming. All of these classes, except for the one on August 10th, are just like this. There'll be a Zoom link and you join virtually. Micro irrigation on August 3rd. I'll do rain gardens in person on August 10th at the Spring Hill Branch Library. August 17th, virtually. Pretty darn invasive plants. People tell me, but the plant is so pretty. When we talk about invasive plants, and yes, it's pretty, but it's also pretty darn invasive. And we're going to talk about that. And I just added 2 more for August 24th and the 31st. They will be part 1 and part 2 of natural products for pest control. And as I said, we do have rain barrel workshops. I have them twice a month. I have one coming next Tuesday. And then the virtual one will be July 28th at 6 in the evening, and pickup will be the next day. If you want to attend either of those classes, what do? You
email Lilly.
That's right, LillyB at hernandocounty.us. And here are our emails once again. You've heard mine about 16 times. And Carmen's is see Bruno. So go over and see Bruno. We don't talk about Bruno. Yes, we do. See Bruno at Hernando County.us. And that's if you're having any issues getting your bins, have any questions, anything, go ahead. Oh, and his phone number, which we don't have here, but you mentioned, Carmen.
Area code 352-540-3862.
3862, 540-3862. Okay, well, thank you for staying with us, and thank you everyone who is also going to be watching us via the recording. Thank you and have a wonderful Florida-friendly day.
Thank you, Lily.